of arts to social change. He calls himself an artist and activist, and now a leader in the theory and practice of art and activism. I love the fact that one of the things he did, besides save the gravel pit that I grew up looking across, looking across at that gravel pit, and he saved it. He gave it back to nature. He and his crew are living on Vashon Island, and he's now, does this look like a board member of the credit union to you? Well, that's what he did. They brought the credit union to Vashon Island, had a whole bunch of new people, and the credit union was so thankful to the board to Bill and his crew that he's now part of it. Bill Moyer. Campaign.org.
All right. Well, I'm going to try to do my best not to force this to be at more late, but I'm going to try to, I would like to communicate some victory stories. And so, this video that's playing was to test our audio. So we're getting ready to go to DC this coming week. And Occupy project, where we've rewritten 50 doo-wop to do actions, and this was both fan domain too. And we're going to do a little flash mob inside the Federal Housing Finance Administration, but don't tell anybody. All right. Alright, so we're going to get rid of that. And we're going to go to this. I was asked, or invited to do a presentation on victory stories. So, this will be, I'm going to use this sort of PowerPoint tool to help guide me through, to do that very quickly and efficiently. And if you can see, it says we the people versus we the corporations. And so I'm sort of setting up, what kind of victories are we talking about? You know, we're building a movement to, I believe, to, one, confront the collusion of corporate and elected power, and two, to transform society and renew and rebuild a social contract that's based on human rights rather than property rights. So, why tell victory stories? Well, because winning is more fun, for one. Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it. Winning is way more fun. Like, shouldn't be the people who are just depressed, and that's why we're not starting to power through, hand off the baton. No. Victories are milestones. Victories are, I think, an obligation we have to deliver to our community, because we're building power. We're building power, movement power, I'd like to make people mad with this one. We have a responsibility to deliver victories, because they're the milestones in this building power process. And we need to stop pissing in the wind for world peace. Meaning we need to stop taking, I understand and I admire, I'm part of the peace movement. But I want to actually figure out what is the power we have, and what's the power we need to achieve world peace. So we have a vision of world peace, but we don't have the power to get there. So why keep doing tactics that are about world peace, without actually doing the organizing and building the power to transform the society to get from where we are now to a society that can actually contribute to world peace? So movements, to be real movements, and for people to want to join them, besides being fun, need to make a material difference in people's lives. So that should influence the strategic choices we make about how we spend our time and what we put our energy into. And as we make a difference in people's lives, we simultaneously are engaged in evolving analysis, delivering and evolving political education. So I'm going to give some examples. Some are from backbone of my direct experience, and some are the experience of allies that I've either been involved with or indirectly or not, just observed. So Moyer Island, this is sort of the longest example. It's what shook me out of my run of only thinking about things and backbone campaign as an organization that cared about national and international policy issues. I thought it was a distraction to get swept up in the Moyer Island fight. They've been going for 10 years. What could we possibly add to this thing? And why should we? We've got all this other, the world to save. But then, I learned incredible lessons about the importance of direct action, and how though this fight has been going on for 10 years with a legislative flank, and elements of offers of money and acquisition flank, a litigation flank, there were fights in the courts that were continuing to fail. There were acquisition, they wanted $115 million for the land. The legislative things were failing. So, our very first gathering, people started calling me up and said, okay, let's have a meeting. Our first gathering, our action was on the beach. It's kind of hard to see this, isn't it, with this light? You guys can see it, maybe you can see it better than I can. So, I'm going to try to not play full news clips.
Protests brought dozens of people to Moyer Island this morning. They gathered on land and at sea near Sandy Shores Beach. At issue is a dock for an expanded gravel mine on the eastern rim of the island. Glacier Northwest crews began laying booms in the water last Friday, following one of the longest environmental battles in the island's history. The steel dock, when it's done, will be 305 feet long and will go right over a state-owned aquatic reserve.
I don't know, it's probably not good to turn these lights off, is it? Because it takes a long time to warm up. Okay, all right. Stop buzzing. Okay. Good. All right. I'll take your word for it. All right, so we have 50 people on the beach, and then we did a nonviolent direct action training, and a month later we had
workers preparing to restart a controversial sand and gravel mine on Moyer Island found their way to the job blocked by protesters today.
King 5 Environmental Specialist Gary Chittum has more on the protest and how the company got around it. The story is new at 6:30.
Hark the herald angels yell, Moyer Island, fare thee well.
Customized renditions of holiday classics were the light side of this pre-dawn anti-mining protest on Moyer Island. But as deputies arrived, the protesters were reminded of the real consequences of civil disobedience.
Be very clear in your actions whether you're planning on staying and risking arrest.
The group of Moyer and Vashon Island residents and outside sympathizers.
So we blockaded 2 roads going into the construction area where this barge loading facility was being built, and we had gotten that press for those 50 people on the beach by putting that big sign out that we got the traffic helicopters to fly over and see those letters on the beach. This time, we alerted the press, and they came because we're doing something pretty dramatic, which is to blockade roads. And we had 55-gallon drums, partially filled with concrete, we had people locked together in steel, metal lock boxes. But
like the fact it's gone through 10 years of regulatory review.
Glacier plans to mine tons of valuable sand and rock.
That was Glacier talking about how we're this isolated group of people. Well, that isolated group of people went from being 50 people on the beach to being, here, let's see here, sorry. And there's some more pictures from our blockade. We held the blockade for about 4 hours and people went in. Then we went to organizing this rally.
Becoming the poster child for the fight to... It is fast becoming the poster child for the fight to save Puget Sound, a contaminated gravel mine set to reopen in the southern Vashon community of Moyer Island.
But for the second time in a week, workers are being met by protesters who vow to keep the mine closed. King 5's Eric Wilkinson reports.
By land and by sea, about 500 protesters descend upon the Glacier Northwest gravel site on Moyer Island.
It's not a local issue. Our entire Puget Sound is safe. We have to take care of it.
It's a battle that's raged for a decade, but Glacier now has the proper permits and a lease to build a dock that would reopen and expand the mine. Opponents say the expansion would threaten an aquatic reserve, marine life, and the island water supply with arsenic from the now defunct Asarco smelter.
Okay, so I'm not going to play you all these news clips. I just want to lead you through this idea of how we went from 50 to 500 in a month's time. We went from being an isolated group of people willing to do anything, unreasonable people, yes, of course we're unreasonable, and making the politicians actually look more reasonable. And we went from 50 to 500 people in a month. We framed everything in terms of not the property values, the NIMBY idea, not my backyard, but in terms of saving Puget Sound. And we changed the political calculus. We're not going to get into this too much, but political calculus is what politicians, people do, they're thinking about how's the wind blowing, etc. Well, that's not the job of organizers. That's not the job of activists. Our job is to stay principles-based. We change the variables in political calculus. Calculus is the mathematics of changing variables, but we shouldn't be doing the button pushing. So here's just some more pictures of that. So our leadership ended up pushing legislators to lead, pushed the nonprofit environmental community to lead more directly. We followed up our direct action, our mass action with additional direct action on the water, changing the field of playing with variety and adaptability in the field of conflict, hitting them in different places where they wouldn't expect. And here we are with our first mosquito fleet action. If you don't believe a small thing can make a big difference, you haven't spent a night in a tent with a mosquito. So here we are, they're tying up the pile driver and stopping construction on that day. We got more threats. Another day under the welding baskets. So finally we changed in this time, in about a month's time, that we got delegation to DNR, we did the governor's office, and then we had a big summer camp, which I'm not going to show you the video for, but if you search for agitators' perspective on how a community or beat Goliath, you'll find it. We were engaged with the community. That was a picture of our orca whale that we built in our first camp. We created an 800-pound gorilla, which was, we told the governor's office and essentially we were going to bring all the protest trainers from the 1999 WTO to Vashon Island to train the community. It got their attention. We had the FBI checking us out. And I got to have beer with Gavin Hoffman one time, and he might have been quoting Alinsky, but he said, what I really remember is he said, if you want a seat at the table, you have to create an 800-pound gorilla that they do not want to deal with. So we had our on-water fleet ready to go 24/7 for the return of the construction barge, and it was scary because I didn't want it. Who wants to go out on the water? This water, beautiful as it is, any time of the year, in little kayaks, especially at 3 a.m. in the morning, and try to stop a barge and a tugboat. That's a little frightening. But we had trained, we were ready to do it, and then by changing the political calculus, we influenced what was read into the record in court. We started to change the court of public opinion. Someone actually in the media said to me, I think the victory is going to happen in the court of public opinion, and we know where that's going. And I was afraid to jinx it by saying, yeah, I know where that's going. But turns out that a federal judge ruled against Glacier and called the Pier project. But that didn't end the project because, of course, they own the land. But it made us our next protest an actual victory celebration. And that victory was, temporary. But what we helped do is we helped lower the price of the land. We helped escalate the price of doing business. And we let the parent company know, the Japanese parent company know that we were paying attention and we knew that they were involved. That's an orca, human mural in orca. And then, about a year later,
10 years of arguments, protests, and legal battles over a small section of a Puget Sound island may have come to a surprising conclusion today. As our environmental specialist Gary Chittum shows us, opponents of a mining operation on Moyer Island near Vashon have decided if you can't beat them, buy them out.
This old mine site on Moyer Island is a well-known feature of Puget Sound. For the last 10 years, it's been a battleground, pitting local residents, groups, and agencies against a multinational corporation with thoughts to resume mining.
Okay, so by changing the political calculus, by changing the social political variables, we ended up bringing down the price so that it sold, and the politicians, it was untenable for them, politically untenable for them to allow this to go forward, and therefore, look at them all line up. Oh, everybody's leading the way. Of course, they didn't even invite the direct action people. We didn't even get a call that there was going to be a president's conference calling for the sale of the land, the purchase agreement. But you know what? Somebody said, if you don't need credit, you can do anything as long as you don't need credit for it. So here we are. Now the final word on this is that it's a park. It was bought for $36 million. It's a park for us, right? So that's a big thing. And it's not a huge investment. We've been able, and now there are lots of these struggles.
Who bought it?
Huh?
Who bought it? Who bought
We used our Sarco settlement money. That was because of all the contaminated land on Vashon from the Sarco smelter in Tacoma, and the other money that came from funds for land acquisition. It was the longest undeveloped shoreline in King County. It was part of the state aquatic reserve. It got other private money, but you know when you have that many politicians lining up saying, "Look at us do this," they don't.